in the darkness of the night in this car park in Al Arish. Their officials took off all the vehicles, that which should be taken off, and then turned their backs and said, quickly, put it back on again. And so the next morning, we drove to Palestine with every last biscuit, every last blanket, every last tent, all the things that they wanted taken off. We took them through Rafah. Which is another lesson, you see. You have to face these people. You have to face these challenges and not to kneel before them. And we entered Palestine. By the grace of God, on the 9th of March, on the birthday of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and kissed the holy ground of Palestine. 350 British people, most of them never been to Palestine before, kissed the ground and were received by hundreds of thousands of Palestinian people in Gaza. Virtually the entire population of the Gaza Strip came out to receive this convoy. And we were very happy to be there, but only briefly. Because what quickly became visible in the morning was the sheer scale of the devastation which had been wrought upon the 1.5 million Palestinians locked up in that concentration camp called Gaza. It was unique in many respects, that 22-day aggression. It's the only war in modern history, if you can call it a war, when one country has an air force, a navy, and all the most sophisticated weapons that can be produced, and the others have no army, no navy, no air force, no anti-aircraft guns, only Kalashnikovs to fight F-16s, only homemade rockets to fight Apache helicopters and warships. But it was the only war in recent history where the population had nowhere to flee, nowhere to run. In normal wars, the civilians can run away, can hide. Israel took the precaution of locking all the gates before they began their bombardment. They told the international media, which was locked outside, that they were sending SMSs to Palestinians, telling them to flee. They were dropping leaflets from their aeroplanes before they bombed, telling the people to flee. But there was nowhere to flee. Gaza is 25 miles long and 2.5 miles wide, with 1.5 million people, with all the doors locked. It's the most densely populated piece of earth on the planet. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And what devastation they brought to bear. Gaza looks like an earthquake scene. The difference being, if it had been an earthquake, all the governments of the world would be rushing to come to the aid of the victims of the earthquake. They'd be rushing the reconstruction material to rebuild the lives and the communities that were destroyed. But because these victims are Palestinians whose blood is cheapest of all, because those killed and wounded and maimed and orphaned in this war were nameless, faceless Palestinians, because the earthquake was a man-made political earthquake launched by Israelis, not only is there no aid, no reconstruction, the siege that I'm talking about has been tightened, the noose has been closed around the necks of the people who suffered that bombardment. Thousands were killed and maimed for the rest of their lives. I don't like this phrase, wounded. Ron will know what I'm talking about. It's like in the cowboy films, you're wounded. You can put your arm in a sling, and by the end of the picture, you're firing your gun again. These people who were maimed in these attacks are maimed forever. their lives destroyed forever, their future gone. Those who were killed, those who were maimed, those who were orphaned, run into thousands. And we saw, now that we have this freedom in the media, thanks to the internet, thanks to Al Jazeera, thanks to Press TV, we saw the kind of crimes. We saw that little girl burned black by the sun as she lay dead in Zaytuna, outside in the sun for 3 days. We saw the ambulance man hold her body up when they were finally able to recover her. Apart from her arm and her leg, eaten by the dogs roaming in the rubble, as Omar was saying in his poem. We saw the little girl, again in Zaytuna, found dead, still suckling on the toe of her dead mother. Keep these images in your mind. And remember that this great war crime was committed on our watch while we were watching on television. We saw the gas, imagine, gas being dropped by a country calling itself, not that we accept it, but calling itself the Jewish state, dropping gas on civilians. White phosphorus gas. I've seen it before. I was in Beirut in 1982 with President Arafat when Israel invaded and occupied an Arab capital and reduced it brick by brick to rubble and ash. I went to the hospitals. I saw the children, victims of Israel's first use of phosphorus weapons. White smoke coming from the nose and the mouth of the victims because their bodies are cooking from the inside. That's what this weapon does. You breathe it in and then you bake from the inside until you're dead. And we saw it on TV happening. In fact, they even dropped it on a United Nations building. And the pictures are there. A clear, obvious, brazen war crime. It's illegal to use this weapon. Have any of them been charged with war crimes? No, the only war crimes charge is for Bashir in Sudan. They watched Israel commit these crimes and then they charged Bashir. And they will never be charged. Trust me on that. In fact, the butchers who carried out this barbarism over those 22 days, the media and the political class then told us in the general election which immediately followed that they were the moderates. Livni, we were supposed to hope that Livni was elected. She, who with Barak and Olmert committed all these crimes, they were the moderates. And if we didn't succeed in seeing them elected, an even more desperate group of killers and murderers would come to power. And so it came to pass. They killed and destroyed and maimed all of this to get re-elected. And still they failed. And now Israel has a government led by fascists. Netanyahu and Lieberman in any other country, in any other time, would be wearing swastikas and jackboots. They're fascists, fascist killers.
You've been listening to George Galloway speaking in Anaheim on April 7th as part of his Viva Palestina tour. He's a member of the British Parliament and is affiliated with the Respect Party. Special thanks to Global Voices for Justice for this recording. For Sonali's subversive thought for the day, I'd like to quote Desmond Tutu, who once said, "We don't want apartheid liberalized, we want it dismantled. You can't improve something that is intrinsically evil." That's Desmond Tutu. That's Sonali's subversive thought for the day. You've been listening to Uprising. If you'd like a copy of today's program, stay tuned for our upcoming pledge drive when we will be offering copies of this and other talks. Gabriel Sanroman is our assistant producer, and Jazz Shepard is our engineer. You can hear an audio stream of this program after 10 a.m. today on our website at kpfk.org/uprising. I'm your host and producer, Sonali Kolhatkar. Gabriel and I will be off on Monday, Memorial Day. We'll see you live Tuesday at 8 a.m. Thanks so much for listening.